What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Watch It in Action. I'm BouseFeenux, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Grinlock's little sister, the Vaykor Marelok. Okay, so I know a lot of you are really excited to see this weapon, but before we get started, I want to say a quick, huge thank you for 4,000 subscribers. I can't believe we've gotten here this fast. Every day I log in, I'm floored by how fast this channel is growing. Now, finally, onto the weapon. The Vaykor Marelok is the Syndicate version of the Grineer-crafted Marelok, and features high impact and slash as its physical damage types. The Vaykor Marelok also features one of the highest status chances for secondary weapons in the game, as well as a very solid critical chance to boot, which allows players to mod for a variety of situations. On top of all that, this weapon has an innate Syndicate proc known as a Justice effect. When the weapon has stored enough affinity, an explosion will be triggered, in this case dealing 1,000 blast damage with a guaranteed blast proc in a 25-meter radius around you. Additionally, the Justice proc will heal you for 25% of your health, and grant a temporary 25% buff to your Warframe's base armor stat. A lot of people consider this weapon to be one of the best secondaries in the game, and it is very impressive, but it's not without its flaws. At long distances, the Vaykor Marelok does have some noticeable accuracy issues, but they aren't substantial. You'll notice too that the Vaykor Marelok has quite a fast firing speed for a weapon of its type, and that when fired rapidly, the recoil can be a little hard to control. Lastly, one of the biggest complaints about this weapon is the way that it fires, the firing animation. I personally like the firing animation for this weapon. I think it looks really cool. It makes me feel like a gunslinger, especially when I'm using it with Mesa, but that's just a player preference, and it doesn't really affect the weapon. It doesn't make it any less better than, anything else out there, so don't let that decide your choice for this weapon. Now, there are a lot of builds for this weapon. A lot of people have a bunch of different ideas, but I've put together a few of my favorite. Let's go ahead and take a look at those. Alright, so taking a look at this build here, we've gone ahead and put 4 Forma into it, and if you're new to the game, that may seem like quite the investment, but don't worry, there's really no better weapon that you could put your Forma into early on in the game. I use this thing late game all the time. Super solid weapon, very dependable. Definitely can't go wrong with putting a lot of investment into this weapon here. So I've got 2 builds going on for it. The Vaykor Marelok does have a lot of options for it, and you just have to play with it a little bit and figure out which one's the best for you. So this first one here is based around status chance, and none of these mods are really that hard to get. You can get them pretty early on, and I really like this build for its reliability. Now, the Hornet Strike here is going to increase our damage by 220%, and that's all damage types here. Every damage that we have on this weapon is going to be increased by Hornet Strike, which is really nice. Definitely a no-brainer there. Barrel Diffusion and Lethal Torrent are going to increase our multi-shot. Lethal Torrent has the added bonus of giving us a little bit of extra fire rate. With both of these mods on here, we can actually get up to 3 projectiles fired at once at the cost of 1 bullet, so that's really nice. Definitely want both of these. There's really no reason to not have both of these mods on here. Seeker is a mod that you can take it or leave it. I love to fit Punch Through on my weapons. Now, if you're new to the game, Punch Through is essentially a utility that allows you to shoot through multiple enemies, so the bullets will pierce targets, cover, anything like that. As long as a bullet can make it through, it'll go through that object and hit the target. So really nice to have on here. I love to have Punch Through on any weapon I can fit it on. If you don't want to have Punch Through, what you can do is you can swap that mod out for a Pummel, which is the 120% to impact damage mod, if you're going to be using the same Forma. Now, if you want to go for the 100% status, definitely switch this out with the Seeker out with another 60% elemental mod, and just put a Y polarity there. Or I think you can actually fit it without using a Y polarity at all, because it's only 7, so, and this is 8, so we would actually have the capacity there. You wouldn't even need a Forma here, so you can actually go 3. So that's one option for you. You have either the Pummel, the 60% elemental mod, or the Seeker that can go in this spot. The rest of this build I think is pretty standard. I wouldn't change much with it. We have the 2 60% elemental mods. That's going to increase our status chance to 98%. And then we have the 2 90% damage elemental mods, which is going to give us a little bit of this damage here, which is really nice to have. And then you can swap these mods out for just about anything you want. You can just change the spots here. You can get corrosive and heat, or you can move this one and you can get toxin and radiation. And there's a bunch of other different combos you can get if you put in the cold mods too. So take a look at that. Use this one. Try it out for yourself. Taking a look at the stats here, we've got a 20% critical chance. We've got a 10 magazine, which is bigger than the Grinlock, even though this thing is supposed to be the Grinlock's, younger sister or whatever. But we get the bigger magazine size at 10. Then we have the 98% status chance. I went for 98% because putting another elemental on top of Seeker would have lowered our DPS or our elemental damage by another 30%, and I didn't feel like that was an adequate trade-off for just 2% more status. But that being said, like I said earlier, if you do want to switch out the Seeker for another 60%, you can totally do that. So we have our damage types down here. We have our Impact, which is the primary physical damage type this weapon does, and then Slash is right behind it at 430. Really nice there. A little bit of puncture damage, which isn't too bad. It helps out a little bit. And with the high status chance of this weapon, we're going to be seeing procs from all three of these physical damage types, as well as our elementals. The next build here, and we're going to try both of these out in the simulacrum, but the next build here is pretty similar. We're still using the Hornet Strike, Barrel Diffusion, Lethal Torrent, and then we have two 90% elementals. There's no 60% on here. But even without 60% elementals, we still have a pretty high status chance of 70%. This isn't going to be nearly as reliable as the 98% status chance, but it's still pretty good. It's not too bad. And then with a Prime Target Cracker and a Prime Pistol Gambit, our critical chance has gone from 20%, and our critical multiplier has gone from 1.5 times to 54% critical chance and 2.8 times critical multiplier. Not bad. That's not bad at all. I mean, 54% is pretty low for a weapon that fires as slowly as this does. I mean, it's not a fully automatic weapon or anything like that. But it's still, there's some sniper rifle, like the Latron Prime has a lower critical chance than this, and that's considered a crit weapon. So do what you will with it. I went ahead and threw a hydraulic crosshairs on here because that gives me the extra 135% crit chance, which with that amount of crit chance, that ensures that I'm pretty much going to be getting a crit all the time. Really nice if you can get headshots with this weapon. The only thing that I did notice, though, is at a distance, like I said earlier, you're going to notice some accuracy fall off. So try to get in a little bit closer when you're trying to get those headshots. So I've got these two builds here. I'm going to test both of them out, and I'm going to let you guys be the judge. I want to hear in the comments which you guys prefer, status or crit. I'm a status person. I like the right reliability of status and what you can do with radiation procs in large groups, or blast and things like that. Although the crit one does do a lot more damage. You're going to see those here in just a second. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Let's go over to the simulacrum. For today's exercise, we're going to be using some pretty tough enemies. We're going to be using Corrupted Bombards at level 90. Now, these are considered some of the toughest enemies in the game in terms of their health and their armor values. They're very hard to take down. I just wanted to use this weapon against them to show you pretty much how powerful it can be and the effect that we can have with these reliable status effects. So I'm using the radiation element, and notice that when it gets a status proc, it causes them to all attack one another. This offers some really good crowd control possibilities, as when one of them is radiation procced, it pretty much aggroes all of them that are closest to it. So with Bombard, stuff like that, it's going to make it very easy to kind of get in and around these guys and keep them fighting each other and their focus off of you while still being able to kill them. Again, that was a status build. Now let's check out the crit build, and notice that it is a lot easier to kill these guys when we're getting those headshots. We're doing significantly more damage with the crit build, and with the hydraulic crosshairs, our crits are pretty reliable. We're getting them fairly often. We just have to make sure that we get a headshot every 8 seconds to refresh that critical chance there. But notice that over the status build, the crit build is doing a lot more damage. We're able to take these guys out, and we still have a fairly decent status chance at 70%, which is obviously proccing a lot because these guys are over here fighting each other. Now, for some reason, I just can't let go of the fact that the Vaykor Marelok should just be a purely status weapon, but it's pretty undeniable after seeing this footage here that it works really, really well as a crit weapon. It's almost undeniable. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, this was the Vaykor Marelok. I'm BouseFeenux, and thank you guys so much again for 4,000 subscribers. It's been a blast these past couple months making these videos for you guys. I cannot wait to see where we go next. And until then, I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.